Hello. You are taking a quiz today, and I decided to be nice to you and read the article to you. Remember, there are a few questions that you will need this article to answer the questions. Some you do not. So here we go. Opinion. Supreme Court confirmation process needs reform. The recent bitter fight over Judge Brett Kavanaugh's appointment to the Supreme Court made one thing very clear. The Supreme Court has become too powerful, too important. The Senate confirmation process involves senators voting for or against a president's Supreme Court pick. If a majority vote for confirmation, the nominee joins the Supreme Court. The entire process should be a calm and reasonable affair. Instead, it has turned into a political street fight. Republicans and Democrats have become two warring parties because both understand what is at stake. The Supreme Court now has the power to advance or overrule the decisions of all other parts of the U.S. government, the states, Congress, and the president. Both parties want to see a court controlled by justices that will advance or protect their agenda. Limited role. The nation's founders, in comparison, had in mind a relatively limited role for the Supreme Court. Alexander Hamilton called the federal courts the, quote, least dangerous branch of government. The justices, Hamilton promised, would have neither force nor will, but merely judgment. Since the 19th century, however, the Supreme Court has had the power of judicial review, the power to review and potentially change established law. Today, that power is regularly used. It has become an alternative to the difficult and lengthy process of amending the Constitution. The Supreme Court has made many changes to the Constitution. For example, thanks to the court, the Constitution requires that police warn you about your right to a lawyer before questioning you. The Constitution now forbids public employee unions from requiring workers to pay dues. Neither of those rules can be found anywhere in the original version of the Constitution. Issues closer to people's lives. As legal expert Benjamin Witz explains, there's a good reason Americans care so much about judicial nominations. It's because, quote, judges are deciding more and more issues closer to their lives. Obviously, the federal judiciary's powerful role is not always a bad thing. The Supreme Court has stepped in to bring about much needed progress in areas where the other branches of government had failed. To give just one example, the Supreme Court played a crucial role in ending racial segregation. Before the Supreme Court overturned segregation laws, blacks in southern states were kept out of many whites-only spaces, from schools to restaurants to movie theaters. Many such reforms took the form of court precedent, meaning they were introduced by the court itself and based on the court's own reasoning rather than on the Constitution. Precisely because these reforms were based on court precedent, they can be overturned by future justices. For that reason, lawmakers who support certain precedents always see them at risk during the nomination process. Meanwhile, those who oppose particular precedents are always hoping to overturn them by getting enough sympathetic justices on the court. Either way, the result is political conflict and legal instability. The United States has reached a breaking point. The courts have too much power, and the war between Republicans and Democrats is preventing effective government. Confirmation process no longer works. The judicial confirmation process no longer works. We should not continue to staff the courts based on which party manages to get a temporary upper hand in the Senate by whatever means. If we do, we will end up with federal courts that side too strongly with one party or the other. The result will be the ruin of American government as a whole. Instead, we should try to find ways to lower the stakes in judicial confirmations. If a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court is too important to give to someone of the opposite party, then perhaps lifetime appointment should go. Lifetime appointment was originally conceived as a way to protect judges from political pressure. Instead, that is turned into the opposite. Perhaps the best idea would be to adopt an 18-year term for federal judges. Such a change would help diffuse confirmation battles. They would no longer be winner-take-all wars for generations of power. Instead, they would be regular, predictable contests for a share of the judicial branch. Unfortunately, such a change is unlikely to happen anytime soon. And even if it did, the courts would still have too much power. Congress could help things by writing more detailed and specific bills rather than leaving them so vague. Writing bills that may help them get passed, but it leaves too much for judges to interpret. The ultimate solution lies in an end to the deep divisions in our nation. The people of this country must find common ground, and the two political parties must learn to work together for the good of all. In other words, the confirmation process will remain broken as long as America is broken. So just real quick, the name of that article is Opinion: Supreme Court Confirmation Process Needs Reform by Charles Lane of the Washington Post. Good luck on that quiz, suckers. What's up? Bye. What's up?